In this section of the second grade Measuring Length and Time unit, students will find the length of objects using concrete models for standard units of customary length. In first grade, students use objects such as paper clips to measure the length of another object, but were not exposed to standard units of length such as inches, feet, or yards. In second grade, students will use concrete models for standard units of length. An example of this is a square color tile, which has a length of exactly 1 inch. In this section of the unit, students will also explore and describe the inverse relationship between the size of a unit and the number of units needed to measure the length of an object. Materials include color tiles, printed monster feet, printed monster arms, classroom objects to measure, and student recording sheets. Students will use color tiles to measure the length of objects. Because each color tile has a length of exactly 1 inch, color tiles can be lined up end to measure an object's length in inches. Using color tiles, we can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 color tiles along the length of the pencil. Therefore, the pencil has a length of 7 inches. Students in second grade are expected to measure to the nearest whole unit. Often when measuring the length of an object, the object does not line up perfectly with the end of a color tile. When this happens, the student should measure to the closest inch. If the object falls less than halfway along the edge of the last color tile is not counted. If the object falls more than halfway along the edge of the last color tile is counted. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 color tiles, and on this last color tile, the end of the pen falls more than halfway along it, so it'll be counted. The pen is about 6 color tiles long, or about 6 inches long. In this activity, students will be introduced to a foot as a unit of length. The monster footprint provided with the activity is exactly 1 foot in length. While reading the story A Monster at School, students will measure the monster footprint with color tiles. Students should notice that it takes 12 color tiles lined up end to equal the length of the monster foot. Because feet are longer than inches, feet can be used to measure longer lengths. Students should use monster feet to measure objects or distances around the classroom. Students should line up the feet end to end with no gaps while measuring. Students should measure to the nearest foot. If the object falls less than halfway along the edge of the last monster foot is not counted. If the object falls more than halfway along the edge of the last monster foot is counted. Here's an example. To measure the length of this roll of paper, 2 monster feet are lined up end to end, and the length of the paper is 2 feet. In this activity, students will be introduced to a yard as a unit of length while reading the A Monster at School Part 2 story. Each monster arm has a length of exactly 1 yard. 3 monster feet are the same length as 1 monster arm. Students should use the printed monster arms to measure objects or distances in yards. Students should continue to line up the yards end to end with no gaps or overlaps and should measure to the nearest whole yard. For example, the width of this table is 1 monster arm or 1 yard. Although students are not expected to understand equivalent relationships between units of length in second grade, such as 12 inches being equivalent to 1 foot, students are expected to understand the relationship between the size of a unit and the quantity of units needed to measure a length. Students should measure the same object or distance using more than 1 measurement unit. In this example, the length of the blue line segment has been measured with color inch tiles and with monster feet. Students should be able to answer questions such as, which unit do you need more of to measure the length? Why? We need more inches because inches are shorter than feet, so it takes more inches to measure the same length. Which unit of measure do you need less of to measure the length? Why? Feet, because feet are longer than inches, so it takes fewer feet to measure the same length. Students should understand that when measuring an object or distance, the shorter the unit of length, the more units will be needed to measure. The longer the unit of length, the fewer units will be needed to measure.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Elementary Math Minute. We hope you'll find these videos helpful, and we look forward to you joining us next time. See you then.